Mayor, myself, as well as our city staff. How's everybody doing? And we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Actually, I don't see it on here on my agenda, but we'll go ahead with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll go ahead and stand up and lead the pledge. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and next up will be the approval of the agenda. I'll move to approve the agenda. Looking for a second by the Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor, I know you're having some audio. Just get your thumbs up for the record for your vote. And so I'll move to approve the agenda. Looking for a second from the Vice Mayor. Thumbs up would be nice if you can. Do you hear me? Vice Mayor, do you hear me? Do you hear me? We'll have to get this audio. Yeah, it looks that might be the theme so far. Hopefully it gets better here. Technical. It must be Friday, huh? Okay, so if you can hear me, put your thumbs up. Vice Mayor, talking to you.
IT, could you please reach out to the Vice Mayor?
Yeah, if they can, please kindly give them a
Yeah.
Vice Mayor call, yeah. Okay, so I think if IT can send the Vice Mayor phone access for the audio, that'll be good. I believe the Vice Mayor can hear us, so if you can hear me right now, Vice Mayor, can you put your thumb up for me, please? Okay, great, there it is. Okay, so we'll take that. That's fine. We'll do some sign language. That'll work. And so I'll move to approve the agenda, and I'll look for a second from the Vice Mayor with a thumbs up. So if you could put your thumb up for the vote. Okay, is that a thumb? Okay, there. It's fine if you can hear me, just put your thumb up for the vote because we want it for the record here. So got to have some sort of acknowledgement. Okay, I know you can hear me, Vice Mayor, so I move to approve the agenda. If you can put your thumbs up to vote with me, so maybe not. So we'll wait a second here. So. I know IT's. Okay. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, folks. It looks like we're live streaming on youtube.com as well as Facebook Live. Thank you very much, folks, for tuning in. If you're perusing your device, smartphone, thank you for pausing here on your news feed to join us as we talk about transportation here in our great city. And we are here, folks. If you're tuning in, you're wondering what's happening, we're just some technical things. We're going to connect some audio and things like that so that all our folks in the meeting are able to communicate. So thank you for your patience, folks. If you're watching, what a great day in Milpitas. The sun is out across the whole Bay Area, and folks are out and about safely. And I hope that you and your family can make it out to our community as well and enjoy some of our restaurants and parks and hillside trails, the Great Mall, perhaps. There's just an abundance of activities for our Milpitas family. So feeling really blessed here in the month of April. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We're just getting some technical things here with audio access for folks here in the meeting. So happy Friday, folks. Happy Friday. Okay. Almost there, folks. You were just getting some technical audio fixes here as we want to ensure we have great communication and things. So, what can I say? I'll go ahead and say a few words in the meantime. What's happening around town here? A lot of events happening. I believe tomorrow we have a food distribution. Let me pull up my calendar. Hate to go off memory. Don't want to get it inaccurate, but yes, we have a food distribution tomorrow, folks, at Milpitas High School at 9 a.m. As you know, we are still going through this dreadful pandemic, and folks are still in need. And so over at Milpitas High School, the home of the Trojans, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., get there a little earlier if you need. They're giving away free food boxes, all the nutrition you need. There's a box of vegetables and fruits. There'll also be a cold box for meat, maybe some poultry. Okay, there's the thumbs up there. We're going to move forward, Vice Mayor. Just give me the thumbs up when I kindly ask, or if you want to vote no, you can put the thumbs down too. Okay. All right, here we go. We're moving on here. I move to approve the agenda. I'm looking for a second thumbs up from the Vice Mayor. There it is. All right, the agenda is approved. Moving on to the next item, we're going to go, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, and I'll look for a second by the Vice Mayor with the thumbs up. And there it is. The minutes have been approved. Moving on now to public forum. I will check in here to the Zoom. Okay, we'll do 2 minutes for the public forum. If anybody would like to speak for this public forum portion, now would be the time. If you're on Zoom, if you are on Zoom, okay, I don't see anybody. That'll be it for the public forum. Maybe we'll take some comments later and afford the time for folks. Okay, great. Moving on to new business here on this Friday. Looks like we have 3 items under new business. Very exciting. First up, we have the Montague Pedestrian Overcrossing Project and Enhanced Crosswalk Striping and Beacons Radar Speed Feedback Signage Project. And so we will go to our traffic engineer, Mr. Steve Chan. And you'll unmute your microphone.
Mayor Trent, I think you were looking at the prior meeting agenda. Our meeting today's agenda is vehicle miles travel transportation analysis under California Environmental Quality Act is our first item.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, the email had 2 attachments. I opened the wrong one. So thank you so much. So under new business, let me start over. We do have 3 items, and the first one is, yes, thank you, Mr. Chan, vehicle miles traveled, transportation analysis under CEQA. Take it away, Mr. Chan.
For this item, we have our planning department, Jay Lee, will be presenting on this item.
Fantastic.
Jay, if you could be promoted to panelist and present your presentation.
Good afternoon. Just pulling up the presentation. All right. Looks like everyone can see it now.
Yes, yes. Hey, Jay, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
Not too bad. Happy Friday, please.
All right. Thank you, Transportation Subcommittee for having me, and I'm excited to present on the vehicle miles traveled policy to implement Senate Bill 743. So this is a policy we've been working on for a while, a little more than a year now, and we just recently presented to the Planning Commission. So we're here before the subcommittee, and then we hope to take this to the full council next month. So I'll get into the presentation now. Let me go to presentation mode. All right. So for my outline, I'll start by providing a background for Senate Bill 743, then go over how the policy is consistent with the city's existing adopted policies, then go over the policy development process, then go over the key policy components, and then conclude by summarizing the key recommendations from staff. So what is Senate Bill 743? It was intended to do the following: ensure that the environmental impacts of traffic, such as noise, air pollution, and safety concerns, continue to be properly addressed and mitigated through the California Environmental Quality Act, more appropriately balance the needs of congestion management with statewide goals related to infill development, promotion of public health through active transportation, and the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And actually, to back up real quick, to accomplish this, the state recommended adopting a new method for evaluating transportation impacts under CEQA: vehicle miles traveled instead of level of service, which is a measure of traffic congestion. So this shift in thinking going on, moving from LOS to vehicle miles traveled, at least under CEQA, has trickled down to the local level as well, since the state is requiring local jurisdictions to adopt policies to implement Senate Bill 743. But there are already several Milpitas plans and policies that support a VMT policy and vice versa. Therefore, it was important for staff to review these plans and policies to make sure that the new policy, VMT policy, aligns with the city's overarching land use and transportation goals. So first, we conducted a thorough review of CEQA to ensure compliance with state law. And we also reviewed the recently adopted general plan, which calls for the adoption of a new VMT policy, but also provides many goals and policies that support providing things such as a balanced transportation network, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, encouraging mixed use, infill, and transit-oriented development. Also, the transit area specific plan, which is currently being updated into the Milpitas Metro specific plan, and also the Midtown specific plan, which will soon be updated as well, to focus on growth and development within Milpitas's priority development areas. And also we reviewed the Climate Action Plan, which implements the city's sustainability and greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals. All right, so in developing the policy, we started by conducting outreach and engagement, then got into technical evaluation, and then started developing the actual draft policy. And now we are here before the various decision-making bodies and advisory bodies for policy adoption. The first step was outreach and engagement. So, a big focus of this phase was to better understand VMT and also to educate ourselves and educate staff. This involved establishing a citywide website, introducing VMT, forming a staff technical advisory group, which met on a bi-weekly basis to hash out any technical issues, coordinating also outside of that with other city departments, and providing various info memos and presenting to decision makers and advisory bodies as we continued the work. The next step was technical evaluation to understand how implementing VMT would affect the city. So staff, we reviewed the relevant plans and policies. We also partnered with VTA, participated in various meetings, amongst the jurisdictions in the Bay Area to share resources, to also just coordinate our efforts regarding VMT. But really the big the big piece of the technical evaluation was the State Office of Planning and Research's Technical Advisory, which provides recommendations to jurisdictions in adopting VMT policy. This was the primary document for city staff, but we also, of course, continue to work with VTA and also reviewed what other cities are doing throughout the entire process. So then the next step was to draft the actual policy. And as you can see on the slide, these are the various components of the policy. So, we're about to get into some technical information, but I'll try to explain it as clearly as possible. And, this really is right in the wheelhouse of this subcommittee. So hopefully it'll really be interesting because it is an important subject. But the key policy components include setting the baseline, also known as the existing conditions, and the thresholds of significance. Like, when does an impact become significant? And then also another component is project exemptions. Which project could potentially be exempt from VMT? Those that potentially have shown a lesser impact on vehicle miles traveled, how much people drive. So these are presumed to have a less than significant impact on VMT. And then another component is transportation projects, evaluating guidance for how to evaluate transportation projects, not just land use projects. Another component was regional projects. These are projects that typically draw visitors from outside of Milpitas. So we wanted to provide some guidance as well for analyzing the VMT for those projects. And also lastly, transportation operational analysis. So something we want to make clear is that although under CEQA, we're transitioning from level of service, which I think most people are familiar with, just because it really measures the level of traffic congestion. Even though we're moving on from that metric to VMT, vehicle miles traveled, which is how much distance you're driving, this doesn't mean that LOS is going to go away. We still are going to evaluate LOS for certain projects. It just won't be considered a CEQA impact. So we'll get into that a little bit later. So I want to go over the components real quickly. First is the baseline. If you're familiar with CEQA, you always measure a project's impact based on the existing conditions. So it was important for us to establish and understand the baseline or existing VMT. And there are two baselines that cities are establishing. One is for residential projects and the other is for employment projects, because these are the two main types of projects that generate VMT. But each city has three options. This is where, although the state's guidance provides a lot of guidance and detail on how to adopt a policy, it does give us a little bit of wiggle room, and this is one of the areas. So cities are either establishing the baseline using the citywide average, which would be the average VMT in Milpitas, or the countywide average, which is the average VMT in the county, and then the regional average, which is the average VMT within the 9-county Bay Area region. So we've provided a little table here that shows you the average VMTs, depending on whether we use citywide, countywide, regional, and also for both residential and employment. But to summarize it, you can generally see that the employment VMT is a bit higher than the residential VMT, which indicates that people generally travel a little bit further for employment rather than your typical everyday trips from your home. So going on to the next slide. And out of the three, staff is recommending the countywide average VMT for both residential and employment because it aligns the most closely with our general plan and specific plans. I'll show you this later when we look at some heat maps. Some of these maps, the maps are based off of which baseline we selected. So, we really looked at the heat maps, looked at our existing plans and made sure that, they were consistent. And then additionally, staff considered available existing resources under our control that could help facilitate VMT reduction. Because a lot of the various transportation efforts happen and are coordinated at a county level, we concluded that establishing the countywide average VMT as the baseline gives us the greatest ability to successfully reduce VMT by participating in countywide programs. Now, then we use the baseline to establish the threshold. So we have the existing VMT, and then the threshold of significance is how much can you reduce the VMT below that baseline, and which is basically when, so anything above that threshold, the impact will be considered significant. Staff is recommending adopting a 15% threshold below the baseline, which aligns with the state's recommendation. Meaning when you put in a new project, and when the impacts are studied, the estimated VMT should be 15% below the existing VMT. Otherwise, we will consider the impact significant. All right, but we talked about projects that have to do VMT analysis, but the state has recommended that there be several projects that do not require VMT analysis because they've shown to inherently reduce VMT. So this is a summary of the various projects that could be exempt. You have your small infill projects, which are projects that generate, well, projects, first of all, that are already in existing areas and then generate less than 110 trips per day. You have retail projects that are under 100 square feet, which is pretty close to the average size of a retail shopping center. These are your neighborhood shopping centers with grocery stores that mostly the people who visit these centers are from the nearby neighborhoods. So you can see these types of projects require the least amount of driving generally. You have your locally serving city facilities like libraries, fire stations, things like that. And then you also have affordable housing. Affordable housing is shown to have to generate less vehicle miles traveled than market rate housing. And also we want to encourage affordable housing as well due to the housing crisis in the state. You also have transit supportive projects. So these are projects that support the use of transit. And these are also within a half mile of existing transit, such as our VTA lines, our BART station. And the heat maps will show what that half mile border looks like. But you can't just be in that area to be exempt. You also have to be of a certain type of project, meaning a high enough density, and also one that doesn't conflict with any regional plans, one that doesn't provide excessive parking, things like that. And then also there are transportation projects. The state has recognized that not all transportation projects increase VMT. When you think of highway widening, right, you can imagine that may induce more people to drive, but there are a lot of other types of transportation projects that do not increase VMT, but actually decrease it. Things like anything that really encourages multimodal travel, through bikes, walking, public transit. So these are the types of projects that could be exempt from analysis, or at least what we're recommending. So I want to quickly go over, the heat maps that I referred to. VTA was instrumental in helping us measure VMT, giving us all the data, providing this data that allowed us to create maps. And we use these maps to actually determine how to craft this policy within the state guidelines. So, this is a lot of technical information, but I think the map is pretty powerful because it shows a lot in just one page, really. So we created two maps, one for employment, as we mentioned earlier, and one for households, for residential projects. And of course, as I mentioned, these are both established using the countywide average. So there are 4 levels of VMT. The green color indicates that these are areas where the VMT already meets the threshold. It's already 15% below the existing countywide average. The yellow indicates areas where you may need to do a little bit of mitigation to achieve that threshold. So projects go into the yellow area, likely you'll have to do a little bit of mitigation. Usually this comes in the form of just locating the project in a certain area and also having a high enough density, which does, mitigates the VMT alone. The orange area is where you may need a little bit more mitigation. These are areas that are a little bit further from transit. So you'll see this when we look at the maps. The red indicates areas that are very difficult to mitigate VMT impacts. In addition to existing VMT levels, the map also shows our city boundary, the transit priority areas that I mentioned, the half mile from transit routes also. And this is where, if you remember, transit supportive projects are exempt from VMT analysis. So let's go on to the map. Oh, I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, so this is the countywide average VMT for residential projects. So let me see. Okay, so as you can see, for residential projects, you can see that, well, so actually, before I get into that, I want to explain what this map shows. It shows the city's existing VMT for residents compared to the countywide average. So on average, how much does a Milpitas resident travel compared to a resident within the county? And this is for people who are driving from their home for everyday uses, like running errands and things like that, getting food. So the countywide average VMT is 13.33, and the 15% threshold below that is 11.33. And as you can see, the Milpitas Metro Specific Plan and much of Midtown is really, those are the areas that are in the green areas, meaning that they already meet the 15% threshold. And when projects go in there, they won't really have to do much. There will little to no mitigation will be required since they're already locating in an area that is well served by transit, that has a mix of uses, that really won't involve people driving really far. And then you can see as you get further and further away from these areas that have mixed uses, higher densities, transit, you see that the colors slowly transition from green to yellow to orange to red. And so it kind of makes sense, right? When being familiar with Milpitas and seeing how the VMT patterns are. And we really, this is why we established a countywide average, because when we put the countywide average data into this map, you see where, you could see how a development might be encouraged to happen in, the areas that maybe are more suitable for development, right? Not necessarily in the outskirts, but areas that are already well served by transit. So this kind of illustrates why we went with the countywide average. Now this is the map for employment. So what this shows is how far Milpitas residents are driving to get, or not residents, sorry, how far Milpitas Milpitas residents are driving to get to their jobs. And this is relative to the countywide average. So in this map, you see that there is no green, right? This means that, I think because on average, Milpitas residents seem to be driving a little bit further than the county average, which is why there isn't a lot of green area. But what this means is that when you put in a project in, let's say, the yellow area, a little bit of mitigation will be required. But this also kind of mirrors the other heat map for residential, where the further you get away from the core of our city or the transit-served areas, the colors transition, more and more to red, meaning more and more mitigation will be required. All right, so so far we've talked about analyzing VMT impacts, and as you can see, the state is really requiring cities to change the way we analyze impacts. But if we're changing the way we analyze impacts, as you can imagine, we also must change how we mitigate these impacts. So there are 4 main categories of VMT mitigation. The first is project attributes. So very often, just the project's location, density, or land use diversity alone will reduce VMT to the threshold. But if additional mitigation is required, the next 3 categories are additional ways to further lower that VMT. The second category is multimodal transportation improvements, improving access to transit, bike, pedestrian networks. This typically lowers VMT. The third category is parking strategies, including parking reductions, providing more bike parking. The thing is, we do recognize that reducing parking can have unintended consequences. So we will be careful and sensitive to the existing conditions in determining where it's appropriate to utilize these kinds of strategies. The last category is transportation demand management, which is especially effective for reducing VMT for employment projects, for office projects. TDM measures include subsidized or free transit passes, employee shuttles, parking cash outs, telecommuting, and flex schedules. And the good news is that with the upcoming first and last mile transit solutions on the way, Milpitas is well positioned to support multimodal transportation and reduce VMT. We recently received an approximately $1 million grant from VTA to implement an innovative on-demand van pool service for commuters, but also for visitors and for residents, and also received support from council to move forward with the bike and scooter share pilot program. So yeah, I do think we are in great position to align with the state's goals. And before moving on to the next topic, I quickly want to clarify when I spoke earlier about what the employment heat map demonstrates or shows, it's really how far people are driving to get to employment in Milpitas. So I misspoke, but what it really shows is for jobs in Milpitas, how far are people driving to get there? Okay, so to move on to transportation operational analysis, right? At this point, you might be wondering, after hearing all this, what about traffic congestion? As I mentioned, we are recommending to continue to analyze LOS impacts, in addition to measuring VMT impacts under CEQA. And we're doing this, we are recommending this because we believe this is the way to meet city policy and also the congestion management program requirements. So again, to clarify, the analysis would be a non-CEQA operational analysis of Milpitas's roadway conditions and would still identify potential deficiencies that may be addressed by a project. So this analysis would include other components such as multimodal analysis of pedestrian, bicycle, and transit facilities, traffic signal warrant studies or other traffic control, project site access and circulation, other neighborhood issues such as cut-through traffic, traffic calming, parking, or other transportation analysis as required by the city. Most of our neighboring cities such as San Jose, Santa Clara, Sunnyvale, and Mountain View have continued to require LOS and analysis outside of CEQA. So real quickly, almost done here, but this project under this proposed policy would be exempted from VMT analysis. By the state's definition, projects like this within a half mile of transit would reduce VMT. However, we do want to clarify this project would still be required to fulfill CMP requirements, analyze intersection level of service operations, turning movements, project access and circulation, potential parking issues, neighborhood cut through, and whatever else is deemed necessary by city staff. All right, so I know this was a lot of information, but to summarize, staff is recommending the following as part of this new policy. First, to establish the baseline VMT as a countywide average for both residential and employment projects. Establish a CEQA threshold of significance 15% below the countywide baseline, following the state's recommendation. Establishing the following CEQA exemptions for small projects, local serving retail, local city projects, projects within transit priority areas, affordable housing, and multimodal transportation projects. Establishing a methodology for transportation projects, and also continuing to analyze level of service as a non-CEQA transportation analysis. So this concludes my presentation. Again, I understand there's a lot of information here, so we are available to answer all of your questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you for the presentation. I fully received the presentation, and let's go ahead and move this to the City Council and move forward here. So we'll move on to the next item. I don't think we need to vote. We'll move it to.
Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yeah, there you are, Vice Mayor, please.
Okay. So I have a question for Jay. Thank you, Jay. That was a really technical presentation. It's a lot, but it's well put.
Exit
on
the
the
presentation.
As a transportation projects, I'm a bit. I have a question on this because I guess what I'm trying to say is that what about the folks that? Well, actually, never mind. It's not the transportation projects. I'm just concerned about what about the folks. This is what the vehicle miles traveled. What about the folks that come from other parts of the other cities and come through our town? Are they, because we're talking about Milpitas residents, right? I mean, in one aspect of the we said it was 13.33. We're using the countywide average for Milpitas residents, but what about the people that come from other parts of the county or from out of county that come through 680 and 880 to go to their jobs, because we are the crossroads, and the whole purpose of this transportation, this vehicle miles traveled, is to reduce our carbon footprint. So I'm a little bit unclear how this is going to help.
Yeah, let me try to answer, but also I believe Karen, is Karen here? Our consultant, Karen Mack, is also here, who's helped us with this policy. So she may jump in as well to answer questions, but she has a lot of experience helping cities adopt VMT policies and has been a great resource. Just wanted to quickly introduce Karen, but to answer your question, that number of the countywide average for people traveling to jobs in Milpitas, it includes, it could include someone from Milpitas coming to a job in Milpitas. It could include someone from a neighboring city. It could include someone from very far. It's just the average of everyone who, all the people who are coming for their jobs in Milpitas. So it does factor all of that. And the thing is, for CEQA, we do want a project that comes into Milpitas to be able to reduce that travel, even if you're from far away, just on average.
Oh, I see it. I get it now. I thought it was just Milpitas residents. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Fantastic. Love it. Love it. Great job, everybody. Okay, great. There's no further questions from the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano. None further.
No, that's it.
And so we'll go ahead and move that over to the next step. Great job, Jay. Thank you. And we'll see who's here for the next item. Milpitas On Demand. Citywide first mile, last mile on demand transit pilot project. Who do we have from our city staff? Welcome.
Again, Mr. Jay Lee will be presenting on this.
All right, I had a feeling.
Project. Jay, take it away.
Well, thank you every time. So go ahead, Jay.
No problem. All right. If I could, yeah, there you go. So I can share my screen. All right. So you'll have to listen to me a little bit more, but this one isn't quite as technical. So, but it is exciting nonetheless. I'm here to present on Milpitas On Demand, which is a program, pilot program that we're hoping to start soon, which is being funded by VTA's 2016 Measure B grant program. So we're very excited to get funding for this so that, to implement a service that could be very helpful for our city and also for our residents. All right, so our presentation outline is I'll provide a brief overview of the grant program, and then I'll provide an overview of the project, go into some of the details of the service, what kind of service will be provided and what the operations will look like, then go over the estimated ridership and cost, then go over the project schedule and next steps, and then have some time for comments and questions. So VTA's 2016 Measure B grant program, it's funded. So this program is funded by Measure B, and Measure B is a 30-year half-cent countywide sales tax to enhance transit, highways, expressways, and active transportation. So as you can imagine, the program is split into several sub-programs to fund a lot of different types of projects, but Milpitas staff, we applied for the Transit Operations Program, which supports new and innovative transit service models to address first and last mile connections and to provide transit service for transit-dependent, vulnerable populations and paratransit users that is safe and accountable. So on December 7th of last year, through a collaborative effort between the city's manager's office, engineering, and planning, the city partnered with Rideco, a company that specializes in on-demand transit solutions, to submit a grant application for this program. And I'm happy to say that on March 4th of this year, the VTA board approved VTA staff's recommendation to award Milpitas a $1,084,732 grant to implement Milpitas On Demand, which will be an 18-month pilot program for an on-demand microtransit service. I'll explain what microtransit is in a little bit, but I'm proud to say that our application received the highest score in the competitive grant program. And I think this is really due to our great partnership with our city staff and Rideco as well.
Thank you.
All right, so what service will Milpitas On Demand offer? Think of it as a cross between a ride-hailing service like Uber or Lyft and a more traditional shuttle or van pool service. Milpitas On Demand will combine the convenience and coverage of like an Uber or Lyft with the capacity and the cost and the first and last mile benefit of a van pool service. Riders will also be able to request and pay for this service through a mobile app and be picked up at a virtual location, like an Uber or Lyft. All right, so some of the project goals. Goal 1 is to support existing fixed route transit services, such as VTA and BART. By providing a first and last mile solution, we want to encourage commuters to take what's already there. And I'm proud to say, and we all know that Milpitas is well served by transit. But oftentimes the inconvenience of getting to a transit stop, right, from your home, or after work, getting from the transit stop back to your home, is a big reason why people choose to drive instead of take transit. So we're hoping to fill this gap a little bit. The second goal is to serve Milpitas residents, definitely employees, and also visitors by providing a different way of getting around, and also to serve our vulnerable and transit-dependent populations with a safe and convenient door-to-door service. Goal 3 is to provide a flexible, convenient transportation option to help balance our transportation network. Milpitas On Demand's expanded coverage and service hours, will also provide virtual stops citywide and provide service on demand. You can just request it, over your phone. All right, so to summarize, the project again will help meet this first and last mile challenge. Also connect Milpitas' residents, employees, and visitors to the BART station, VTA services, jobs, and other community amenities. It will also, as I mentioned, provide virtual stops in safe and well-lit areas, which can also be adjusted over time, just to make sure that we're meeting the demand in the best way possible. So the service will utilize an innovative hub and spoke model. Users will be able to request a ride from any of these virtual stops, which is shown by a dot on this map. You can request a stop at request pickup at one of these virtual stops, and then get to a hub. So you can see there are 4 hubs that we've selected. So to get to this hub and then continue their travel or reach a destination. You can also go from the hub to a virtual stop, but we didn't want to allow for allow to request a ride from a virtual stop to another virtual stop, because what we really wanted to do is to encourage people to utilize existing transit. And this is really the innovative component of our model, right? How are we different from what's already there? And this is, I think, a big part of the reason why we scored high, because this really is an innovative model. And we've selected 4 hubs: the Alder Station, VTA station, which is near our major employment areas, the Metro Center, which is home to the Great Mall, obviously a key regional destination, the Milpitas Transit Center, for obvious reasons, and City Hall. We want the program to run for 18 months to allow for evaluation and continual adjustments. We thought a year would be a little bit too short. So we'll provide this service through 7 minivans with ADA access. We will provide 12 hours of service per day, 5 days a week. And through this innovative on-demand service model with the virtual stops, wait times and walking distances will be shorter than your typical transit service. So it offers something like a micro transit service, but with the convenience of a ride-hail, service. Shorter wait times, shorter walking distances. The maximum wait time will be 10 to 15 minutes. Furthermore, the service model is also a relatively affordable transportation option for both the city, so relatively low cost per passenger and operating cost, but it also will be a low affordable option for residents. So the first stop is Alder Station, to connect to the industrial park nearby, a first and last mile solution, and there will be virtual stops in the surrounding areas. The second hub is the Great Mall light rail area, definitely for access to the Great Mall, for residents to get to the Great Mall and vice versa. The Milpitas Transit Center, this is a key regional transportation hub in the city. So we definitely want to connect to this area, and also to be able to travel from this area. Also, we do think that it might help reduce the load on the adjacent parking garage. And then of course, City Hall and Town Center, where people can have access to City Hall, to the nearby shopping areas, also for trips from residential neighborhoods to the center. So quickly, I want to quickly go over our expected ridership and cost estimates. There's a fairly large, a wide range for the estimated daily ridership from 120 to 420, because we're not quite sure how transit will recover yet. But so in estimating the cost, we actually went with the most conservative ridership, meaning if you look at the fare recovery estimate there, it could actually be higher if we have more ridership. But to summarize some of the costs, the Measure B grant will provide a little over $1 million. We do have a 20% local match. However, we do think much of this can be recovered through fares. And then also we received a $200,000 developer contribution associated with the project, the Bridge Developments Industrial Development Project on McCarthy Boulevard. So this money was actually set aside for a future shuttle program. So it fits perfectly with what we're trying to do here. So we do think that we'll be able to run the program at no out-of-pocket cost to the city. All right, so for the next steps, we're still waiting on the grant agreement from VTA. They're very busy. So in the meantime, we're also working with Rideco to execute a service agreement for the program. We do anticipate bringing both agreements to the council sometime in June for approval. And then following council approval, the next steps you can see here are to develop a service plan, develop a marketing plan, and deploy the Rideco platform. We're hopeful that we can launch the program 14 weeks following council approval. Although, we don't have to rush as well, just because I do think that we want to see what the ridership will be like when we're kind of coming out of the pandemic, hopefully. But we do think that Milpitas, with Milpitas On Demand and also all of our other ongoing transportation efforts, that we will be well positioned from a transportation perspective once transit ridership recovers. So this concludes my presentation, and thank you for your time. Available to answer any questions.
Fantastic. Really, really loving the presentations, Jay. We'll go to the Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor, did you want to chime in anything?
Oh, this is really great. This is what we were talking about, something like that last year when staff did a presentation on a shuttle services.
Right.
But yeah, it's the key areas that we were talking about. I have a question so far on where it says Rideco, the Rideco platform. So this Rideco company, and then I saw that it says yellow cab. So I'm just curious why it has the yellow cab. I mean, are they part of it too?
Yeah, I believe, I'm not sure if it will be yellow cab, but that was an image from perhaps one of their other vans, but they are, I think, contracting with a company that will provide those vans.
Okay. The other question is, so, I've been kind of eyeing autonomous vehicles, so that's in the future. And I know that Assistant City Manager Ashwini also, she's aware that I've been asking about that. But I think Mountain View has a vehicle. I think they also received an award. I'm not sure, but they have an autonomous vehicle, and I know that this money this grant won't last to sustain us. So I'm thinking maybe in the future we can have some autonomous vehicles that will, so we don't have to pay for the driver, because that was really the biggest cost when we did the shuttle services. It was the drivers. That's where the cost to have this program going. And another question is it only for the city, or is it to go out? Say somebody wants a ride from BART to Mountain View. Is it only for the city, or is it out of the city?
It will only be for the city, but it will connect to BART and VTA to allow people to more easily get to other cities using transit.
Yeah, but BART doesn't. Well, I guess they could take the light rail, but that's one of the. But that's one of the problems. It's people don't take the light rail because it's too slow to go to Tasman and that area. So I was just wondering if that's going to be used to go on the 237 express lane, but I guess not.
So one of the things, Vice Mayor, is that this is a pilot. We are excited because this could be something that the VTA then transitions to, as a model for kind of, because they're finding that the large buses they have are not very effective. They're not very cost effective. They're not nimble. And so that's why we're excited to be kind of doing this, so that VTA also wants to look at the data and then possibly shift to something like this region-wide. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, we on the board, we've been discussing one of the problems with light rail is that it's too slow, and so we've been discussing about speed, and maybe this is an alternative. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor, as well as our great city staff leaders. I don't have any further questions. Really enjoying the presentations. You're doing a great job, Jay. We'll go ahead and move the business item B, as in Bravo, to the City Council. Moving on to the last business item for today is the Calaveras Boulevard Widening Project. Very exciting. And we'll go to our city staff here. I'm not sure which person, but
That will be me, Steve
All
Chan,
right.
who will be presenting this item. Let me bring up my presentation. Okay, item number 3, Calaveras Boulevard Widening Project. A little background. Calaveras Boulevard is a critical state highway that provides in-county, cross-county mobility to support economic growth as well as providing mobility for our residents getting in and out of the city. Calaveras Boulevard has a bottleneck between Milpitas Boulevard and Able Street, which results in substantial congestion during the AM and PM peak hour, which has exacerbated for more than a decade. Calaveras Boulevard widening project will widen the roadway to eliminate this bottleneck and install sidewalk on both sides of the bridge structure and provide bicycle lane to enhance mobility. The city also adopted a traffic impact fee for all new development in the city to contribute funding to building this improvement in 2009. In regards to the 2016 Measure B tax measure, as Jay mentioned earlier, Measure B is a 30-year half-cent sales tax measure passed by Santa Clara County voter in 2016 to fund transportation improvement. Measure B is expected to generate $6.3 billion over 30 years to fund 9 transportation programs. These 9 programs include BOT Phase 2, pedestrian and bicycle improvement, Caltrain corridor improvement, Caltrain grade separation project, county expressway improvement, highway interchange projects, local streets and road for maintenance of local jurisdiction roadways, State Route 85 corridor improvement, as well as transit operation improvement. There are 24 projects listed in the highway program, and Calaveras widening project is identified as one of those highway program projects. VTA is currently developing a 10-year expenditure plan for Measure B. The expenditure plan will include principal, budget, as well as project selection criteria for allocation of the Measure B revenue we receive annually. The current principle presented by VTA so far essentially caps tax revenue allocation for each program category to align with the intent of Measure B, so that no one program will get additional funding in advance of at the expense of other programs. Secondly, the formula-based program will get a percentage of annual tax revenue. These formula-based programs include local street and road, which allows for maintenance of local streets and pavement, bicycle and pedestrian improvement, as well as transit operation. The remaining 6 programs are classified as need capacity-based program, and these projects will be implemented based on project readiness criteria. So looking at the expenditure allocation, this is a simplified version of what that allocation would entail. As you see on the left column, it lists all the 9 programs. The total allocation for each of the program per the ballot measure is on the second column, and the allocation percentage is on the third column. And then the annual allocation based on the 10-year expenditure principle is listed on the last column. As you can see, the highlighted program, the highway program, which includes the Calaveras widening program, will receive a $25 million annual allocation between the 24 highway projects in the ballot measure. If adopted, the 10-year funding for Measure B would be constrained for all the program. Calaveras widening project would need to be completed in phases due to this significant project cost. The estimated project completion cost is at $85 million, with an annual of $25 million distributed between 24 other projects. We would likely not be able to complete this project all at once. City staff have reached out to VTA to discuss advancing the next phase of Calaveras project. The project study for the Calaveras widening project has already been completed. The next phase of the project would be the environmental documentation of the project, completion of the environmental documentation would allow Calaveras Boulevard widening project to be more competitive when compared to other projects competing to limited, funding opportunity, both locally, statewide, as well as federal opportunity. Additional staff is working with VTA to develop a funding agreement to memorialize the project commitments for both agencies to complete the environmental document phase of the project, and will be bringing the agreement to full council for consideration. That concludes the presentation for the Calaveras widening project. I'm happy to answer any question that you may have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chan. Such an important item for our city, past, present, and future. I think folks' ears really open up and eyes widen when we hear about this Calaveras Boulevard widening project, every word of it. I thank you for the updates. I'm happy to see that kind of the really initial sort of planning actions have been taken. Our residents will really appreciate that. And to really see what our county funding, county level funding with VTA is, that's encouraging as well. Certainly an opportunity our city will take up with all the hard work that you're doing, as well as our city staff. I'm so thankful. I know, our city is being very strategic and looking for funding from other areas as well, other government levels. So that's encouraging. Maybe when we bring this forward to the city council, when that time is, we can get an update. It is a state route, 237, and I would like to see the state bear bear a majority of the cost. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that update the next time this comes around to a public meeting, to see where the state's at. It is their property, and would love to see an infusion of funding there from the state. So I'll look forward to that next time. And we'll go to the Vice Mayor for any comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I had asked staff to bring this up on the agenda because, right now the VTA is going through their budget, and, and I'm still in the learning phase. So it came about the needs formula it's called the formula principal projects and the needs principal projects. And so I think we were on the formula, but now we're on the needs. Because I really feel that widening Calaveras is really important, because back when I was on the city council, the representatives, advocates wanted us to sign on Measure B, and they said that Calaveras would be on that list, and because that's what the community wanted. So that's why we signed on to Measure B to tax ourselves. I just want to know how many matching funds do we have for that's on this project? I know that 85 million is quite a bit, and I'm just concerned that I know it's a 30-year sales tax, but there are so many big projects, and I just want to make sure that we, the citizens, get Calaveras widened, because it was promised to us. So I want to know how much in the matching funds do we have in our pot, Calaveras bridge pot, if you will.
So the required local match for Measure B is 10%. So for a total project cost of 85 million, the local match portion is expected to be 8.5 million. The city do not have the 8.5 million at the moment, but we do have sufficient money to move the environmental phase, the next phase of Calaveras widening project, to the next milestone. I think that's a key point here, that we want to advance the project. Even though we cannot complete it all at once, we want to move it incrementally as best as we can to get it completed as quickly as possible. Right.
We have to piecemeal it. It is quite a bit of money, and I'm just wondering that if we're going to be I just want to make sure that it gets funded in some, I just want to make sure that staff is diligent in going out and looking for money from the federal government, from the state, because that's where you really, if we're serious and really serious, I think staff has to do their due diligence and really look out for some, look for funding, because that's the only way we're going to get it built. So, but I appreciate all your hard work and your
If I may,
presentation.
Vice Mayor, our staff is, I do want to represent.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that
Our staff they're going above and beyond right now. It's amazing. They are in contact with the Congress's office.
okay,
fully.
great.
And so there's no question to the due diligence or the excellence of their efforts. And so.
Yeah, put up. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. I appreciate that. Yeah, I just want to chime in whenever I can, be of assistance. I kind of sit in different meetings and emails, and sometimes, due to the Brown Act and things, we're not able to kind of, and this is why we're here, the public meeting. And so I do want to share that together. And I'm so glad that we do have the Vice Mayor here on this subcommittee. I mean, she's our representative on VTA, and you got multiple meetings a week, countless hours. And so I just want to give my thanks to you, Vice Mayor, for leading us and providing leadership on the VTA for us. But yeah, we are.
I'm fighting for our city.
Yeah,
I'm looking out for us.
Yeah, we are collectively working on it, and I'm so excited for our staff to present all the information as we move forward. I know when this comes back to council, I'm sure there'll be more positive news, and I do have faith that we can get this done, this project done at a reasonable point in time. So, thank you very much, Mr. Chan, once again. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay, we're going to other topics. Let's check in with our assistant city manager on the staff side if there are any other topics. Ashwini?
Thank you, Mayor Tran. Nothing else from our side.
Okay, great.
I do want to mention that this is construction season for our street resurfacing project. We'll be starting our resurfacing project this summer in the California Circle neighborhood near Dixon Park, and then also focusing area on the southeast corner of the city in the neighborhood next year.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, they're going to love it.
We'll be improving our pavement condition index. Currently, it's good. It's going to get better once we complete this year's resurfacing project. And
yes.
also planning for next year's project right now. We're focusing neighborhood area near Temple Drive. We'll be using all available funding that we have at our disposal. One measure B, Transportation Demand Act, to improve curb ramp and pavement for our residents here in the city.
Yes, thank you. And street resurfacing, that is a very special thing here in Milpitas. If I can ask you, Mr. Chan, if you can email the Vice Mayor and I the map. And obviously we have the 5-year plan with the map, the colors of the streets. I know you have it on your tip of your fingers. And if you can save us the time to search for it, but if you can email that to the Vice Mayor and I, we'd love to share it. And if we can have our communications folks share it with our residents, hey, construction season, and show the map. We really appreciate that.
Also, Mayor, can I ask for so Steve, can you send me that what is it called? Your presentation?
For the street widening for the Calaveras Boulevard.
Okay.
That one. That way I can my records.
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah, we appreciate the extra attention. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
And with other topics, I guess some final remarks of mine just for today is I don't have any other topics or ask. I just want to thank everybody. It is April, and we have a lot of decisions to make as we move towards the end of the fiscal year. So, I'm just gonna and Vice Mayor, you're next. And I just want to keep the faith as we move forward here during this tough time in our city, as much positivity as we can bring. So, Vice Mayor.
Thank you so much. You just reminded me, so in May, I forget the date, but there will be a bike-a-thon. I think VTA has an annual bike-a-thon, and I'm thinking we can do something like that in our city. And I don't know if this is the right department or if it's with the Parks and Recs department, since we don't have a bicycle commission anymore. So I don't really know if this is the right venue, but I'm hoping that we can have something like that for our community. And I'm going to ask you to send the link, put the link on to someone, some staff member, maybe Ashwini, and then you decide whether we can put it on our website.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. Why don't you bring it to the council at the next meeting, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
great. But I'm glad the VTA is doing that. Thank you for sharing. Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. I thought it was a really great meeting, and hopefully we didn't spend, or we spent an appropriate amount of time this afternoon. But thanks to everybody who's on the call. I don't see any public comments for the record. I want to make sure we take all the public comments, and I don't see any public comments. I want to just, before we adjourn. Okay, great. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Thank you, staff. Great job.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.